This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Normally, I interview an association or nonprofit CEO about their journey and the things their organization is doing to thrive. Today's episode is a little different. I'm joined by two members of my team at Matrix Group to talk about the themes and lessons we gleaned from a year of Associations Thrive episodes. Leah Monica is Director of Marketing at Matrix Group, and Ray Stankiewicz is Director of Client Solutions. Leah and Ray, thanks for joining me for today's episode.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy almost New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Oh, I can't believe 2024 has come to an end and 2025 is almost here. It happens in a blink. Joanna, you had quite the year with the podcast this year. I think we managed to publish 47 episodes in this past year, which is amazing.
Amazing.
So looking back on this year, I'm curious, what's the top story from all of your episodes?
Wow, that's a tough one. Thinking back to all of the episodes that we had, so many lessons from the amazing guests that we've had on the show. I think my number one insight is that many association chief execs really felt that their organizations need to be the storytellers for the industry.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm thinking about David Chavern, and he was CEO of the Consumer Brands Association. And he said that during the pandemic, as an example, there were lots of stories in the media about grocery manufacturers and retailers engaging in price gouging, which he said was far from the truth. So CBA felt like they needed to make sure that their member stories and motivations were well represented in the media. He said the whole notion of greedflation wasn't doing anybody any good, and CBA had to kind of be at the forefront of making sure that the stories were being told accurately and well.
Ah, you make a good point. That makes me think of James Thomas and how he said the American Society of Home Inspectors wanted to do a better job of telling real estate agents and the public about the value of their members, about the value of home inspection and what their members do and the value they provide. So, I guess that's why ASHI decided on a website redesign and asked us to do a couple of branding videos and help them better tell the story of ASHI and really their members and the impact of their members.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm also thinking about Wendy Jo Toyama, who talked about how the American Academy for Hospice and Palliative Medicine, in addition to serving members, also wants to educate the public about what hospice and palliative care are. So, for example, Wendy emphasized that palliative care is not just for old people because children will sometimes need palliative care, and it's not just people who are dying.
Mm.
And in addition, because she's chair of ASAE's Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community group, she talked about the need to educate the general public about this diverse community. Asian Americans in general, a huge diverse community, but also to talk about what we bring to the association community and that we are here in the community at all.
Right. So I think, in addition to storytelling, I think listening to a number of different episodes throughout the year, I kept noticing an emphasis on organizations that had programs that provided both education and then building communities within their organization. So I'm thinking of, especially within the Surge Institute and their fellowship program. And that was described by Yurik Shannon. I think they have a fellow program that was a 10-month program that was part education, part mentoring, part coaching, and part community too.
Oh yeah, the fellowship program is so impressive. But the Surge Institute isn't the only organization to have a program that sort of spans many, many months. I think the idea of creating a cohort of people who share the same goals and then go through an education program together is really, really powerful. Direct Women has a Board Institute program that accepts just a few women each year. It's an intensive program that prepares women attorneys to serve on Fortune 500 boards. Talk about a really specific mission, and the Institute is set up just for that. And then there's Michael DeFrisco, who talks about the Dental Dojo of the American Academy for Cosmetic Dentistry, and that's an intense study group for the cosmetic dentists that want to get accredited.
Yes, love all those programs.
Yeah, I want to be part of a cohort. I want to be part of a dojo. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I know. Pretty cool,
The
right?
dojo is such a cool name. I love it.
Now you're reminding me a little bit more about the Council on Undergraduate Research, or CURS. It was their STR program,
Their STAR program.
STAR program, that goes for 6 months. And I think it teaches faculty and students how to advocate for undergraduate research. I think this episode, maybe it didn't just make it for 2024, but it's interesting that we're seeing more of these programs that go way beyond just a single course or webinar series, or, having a set of strung together webinars or meetings.
Oh, gosh, absolutely. I mean, think of CAPA, which is headed up by Sue-Ann Hong Whitaker. They have the Shiro and the Apolli programs, and both are designed to help underrepresented women advance their careers. I think we'll find that many of these intensive programs are designed to help underrepresented groups advance to something. So it's not just education and creating a cohort, but it's like helping them to get to the next level. And think about Eduardo Arabu from the National Hispanic Corporate Council. He talked about their Latino Executive Accelerator Program, which aims to help Hispanic and Latino execs move up in Fortune 500 and maybe even Fortune 1000 companies. So again, very, very prescriptive with their goals. And, again, what's distinctive about these programs is that they combine education with community and coaching. And many of these programs are extremely supportive throughout the lifetime of the membership, for example, or even beyond the institute of the program. So Direct Women, for example, coaches women in the program until they get their first board seat. So amazing. It's not just you do the institute and you're done. It's we're going to help you get through this.
That really is amazing. I love seeing all of these ways that everyone is really working hard to meet the needs of their members and building community and all of these different programs, and then also thinking about the industry and the focus there. But something else I'm thinking about, Joanna, that I'd love your take on is you get to talk all the time with people that are incredible leaders. They're doing incredible things for their association, but have you noticed any specific themes related to leadership? Are they talking about that a lot? And what thread can you pull there?
I mean, I think leadership is a running thread through all the episodes. But one recurring theme is how leaders are thinking about how they're navigating the hybrid world. So Kate Fryer, who's CEO of the Endocrine Society, she said that she had run really large teams at another organization prior to the pandemic. When she came to the Endocrine Society in 2021, she said she wasn't prepared to lead in a remote or hybrid setting. So she cold called a bunch of CEOs to get guidance.
So smart.
I know, pretty cool. And she said that those CEOs were just so generous. And then she worked with her staff to create a set of policies for hybrid. And she says that they probably got to where the other companies got to, but they used a different process for developing their policies. And this collaborative process allowed her to hear from everyone on staff. So there's a lot of buy-in for their hybrid policy. And I love the example that she gave where she says she wants whole teams to be in the office together, because she says it makes no sense to bring people back to the office only to have them be on Zoom all day because some team members aren't in the office.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you're going to be in the office, be in the office.
Yes.
Lisa Fitch talked about this too. She said that she and her staff, they pick a day, and that's the day that they work on the stuff that they can and should be doing together. Very intentional and very productive.
Yeah, I mean, I think hybrid is definitely still a moving target, but some organizations are really forming some really great strategies around it and finding out what works specifically for their teams and their organizations. But it's also interesting to think about, the associations and nonprofits that are still going and sticking with the all remote philosophy. So I'm thinking of the Mike Copps episode. Mike's the CEO of the Analytical Life Science and Diagnostics Association, or ALDA. And he shared a little bit more about how his team continues to still be all remote, but the people within the DC area get together pretty regularly to get together and co-work. And that seems to be a really effective strategy for them, too.
Not dissimilar from what we do here at Matrix Group, which seems to work.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know we've had lots of other CEOs from previous years talk about all remote and hybrid. Lindsay Curry, again from Kerr, and Christina Llewellyn from Atlas, or the Association for Technology Leaders in Independent Schools, come to mind. They run all remote teams, and I loved their episodes because they're so thoughtful about how they created a really strong culture within their organization, but all remote.
I think you're absolutely right, Leah and Ray. The organizations that have been intentional with their remote or hybrid strategy are more successful. They didn't just decide to work remotely. They're thinking hard about how do we make sure that we have a thriving culture and that we still have collaboration and we still have really good communication, even though we're not together like in the same building. You know, one trend that caught me off guard this year is the idea that there's a looming membership cliff for many associations.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
That sounds ominous.
Well, it is kind of ominous. Michael DeFrisco from the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentists shared how a survey of their members revealed that 52% of accredited members are planning to retire in the next 5 years. Now, this is significant. The accredited members are a small percentage of the membership, but they're the most important, and you have to be an accredited member, for example, to serve on the board. So if you got a bunch of them retiring, what's going to happen to your leadership, to your governance? And check this out. Kelly Baxter, when she was at the American Translators Association, talked about, again, how a member survey showed that 62% of all members are close to retirement.
That's crazy.
I know, it's crazy. And then there are CEOs like Devin Jopp from the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology, or APIC. He's worried about the number of healthcare professionals who are retiring or getting close to retirement, as well as the professionals who are just burned out and leaving the profession. So there's a huge crisis, not just among doctors and nurses, but in general with all of the other positions in healthcare settings. Like Tracy Moorhead talked about how there aren't enough people to wash clothes, for example, at skilled nursing facilities.
Wow.
Yeah, healthcare is really feeling the burnout pinch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, whether you call it a cliff or a crisis, I mean, those are definitely worrying numbers and trends for sure among the industry, but it sounds pretty familiar. Didn't we do a webinar on this topic pretty recently?
I sure did, and it was through UST, and I had Michael DeFrisco from AACD and Tracy Moorhead, CEO of the American Association for Post-Acute Care Nursing, or APACN. They were on a panel with me, and they shared how they survey members to reveal membership trends and what they're doing about it. And what was interesting about that webinar was how the chat was all lit up. Remember that, Leah? It was like a Twitch stream.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, rapid fire.
What we learned is that most organizations aren't tracking trends like membership retirement, and most said they are already experiencing some kind of a decline. And there were a few that said, look, we have some worrying trends, but these are some of the things that we're doing to really stem the decline, maybe increase membership in adjacent positions. But, this is big. And the demographic trends are not in association's favor.
No, man, there's just a lot going on out there. So in this dynamic and kind of fluid environment that we find ourselves in, what are associations doing to cope with all of these things?
Yeah, this is where leadership really comes in.
Yes.
Vince Tolucci, CEO of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, when I interviewed him, he had just concluded a 10-day listening tour to find out what's on the mind of the members. Imagine that, 10 days to just have conversations with the members.
Oh, I love that so much.
It's like a road show.
Yeah, it was definitely a road show. And he said that they asked their members 2 questions. What is the most pressing issue confronting your agency? And what is the most important issue facing the profession? Interesting, right?
Very, yeah.
Yeah, and for an area like policing and law enforcement, those are really big questions to ask.
Yes, and if you ask those questions consistently over time, then you get to see trends. And he said that in 2024, members reported that top-of-mind issues are recruitment and retention. Again, there's that. There's demographic trends and cliff. Officer safety and wellness, not a surprise. Violence against police officers, legalization of marijuana, and highway safety.
Whew.
And so all of IACP's programs are laser focused on these pressing issues. And then, of course, AI is thrown into the mix, as in how are agencies, addressing AI? How is AI helping them? What are policy issues related to AI? There's just so much.
Well, they just have these tiny little issues to tackle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just throw AI in the mix. And there's an AI solution for that, I'm sure, somewhere.
Well, Vince talks about how, and actually I had him twice on the podcast already, but in the very first podcast that I had with him, he said, Joanna, The issue with law enforcement is that all of society's ills are laid at the feet of police. No matter what the problem is, you call the police, you call 911, and you expect someone to respond. And in some cases, it's a societal ill that maybe law enforcement can kind of put a Band-Aid on, but they can't fix. It's a very interesting profession.
That's heavy. One thing I realized this year is that associations are launching new services specifically to respond to member needs. IACB has a lot of member needs and things that they're discovering, but also, one thing that comes to mind was Pam Donahue. She talked about redeveloping the Source, which is the industry go-to guide for state-by-state information on default mortgage servicing needs. This information didn't really exist anywhere else and was really badly needed by the industry. So I thought that was a really cool way that they were responding to a very real need.
Yeah.
That sounded really similar to, I think, something that Jose Segarra from the Association of College and University Owners, or ACUA, was really describing in his episode about their Kickstarter program.
Ah, yes.
And Jose was saying that, when a topic or issue suddenly came up at colleges or universities, ACUA would bring a group of members together to create a Kickstarter or a primer, in some cases they called it, so that their members aren't caught flat-footed, and they would know how to respond quickly to either it was a new government regulation or a law or something else that they hadn't expected before. But they can really put these Kickstarters out fast, and it was really kind of like a rapid response initiative for their organization.
Gosh, so many cool things, so many episodes, so much learning.
Yeah.
So Joanna, to switch gears a tiny bit, what are some of your favorite tips that chief execs shared this year?
Wow. I can think of so many things, Leah, but I'll share two of my favorites. The first is from Deb McKinnon from the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. Deb says that when you've been a fellow of ACTEC for 5 years or less, you have a blue dot on your name tag at meetings. Now, most people don't want to be labeled a newbie at meetings, but apparently at ACTEC, board and committee members are trained to specifically seek out fellows with blue dots on their name tags, to welcome them, to get to know them, to talk to them. And she says, as a result, it's not uncommon for people to not want to give up the blue dot because they open so many doors. Isn't that amazing what ACTEC has created in the way of meeting culture with a blue dot?
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. And I understand. I wouldn't want to give mine up either if that's the culture and people are responding. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But what's cool about it is that it's part of their culture, and they apparently train the leadership to specifically look for the blue dots.
It's incredible.
And then finally, I loved my interview with Dr. Hudson Garrett from the Association of Healthcare Value Analysis Professionals, or AVAP, and his board chair, Karen Niven. So this is really fun. It was an episode with both of them because Dr. Garrett said, look, I want to do an interview with my board chair because together they're such a good team and they're making so many great things happen. And here's what Karen said. She talked about how she expects her board and committee members to help the association promote membership and meeting attendance. So the AVAP staff provide board members regularly with graphics and messages to share with their networks on social media and via email. Now, apparently some members even routinely ask for more resources because they've run out of things to post. And Dr. Garrett actually said, look, this creates more work for my staff, but it's welcome work because the results have been stunning.
Oh, I can only imagine. As a director of marketing, this is a dream.
I know, exactly right. Because it's members promoting membership and meeting attendance, they're creating a sense of FOMO, or a fear of missing out, and it's creating buzz and increasing registrations.
Wow.
I actually had at least a couple of CEOs tell me that they listened to that episode. One of them played it at a board meeting and said, let's do this. And it had a great impact on meeting registrations for their annual conference. Amazing.
Oh, how fun. What a ripple effect. Joanna, I bet you could talk all day about your episodes and the things you're learning.
All day long.
I could probably too. I feel like every episode is definitely a masterclass in association management. I've learned so much. I know we have so many listeners that have said that they've learned so much.
I totally agree. I mean, these executives are doing such a really phenomenal job of sharing what their organizations are doing to thrive. And they've been so open and willing and eager to share. And it's great that we get to have the opportunity to capture all this information just for our own purposes and just really encourage a lot of conversation within our own podcast community. So, I mean, I think really, Joanna, what you shared with us, these executives, and often what they think that what they're doing is really simple and not worth sharing. But I've really found the opposite to be true. There's a lot of secret sauce about, what's happening within these different organizations that really does allow them to thrive.
Absolutely.
Ray, I agree 1,000%. I hope that lots of association executives listen to the podcast, subscribe to Associations Thrive on their favorite podcast site, and tell others. There's gold in these episodes.
Oh my gosh, so much gold. So Joanna, as we are kind of wrapping up 2024 here and we're moving forward into 2025, I'm sure our listeners are desperate to know, what are you thinking for the podcast in 2025? What's next?
I think there are a zillion CEO stories still to be told and a zillion stories about associations and nonprofits innovating and thriving. Leah, you and I have discussed this. I don't think I want to make a lot of changes to the format of asking about the journey and then asking about the things they're doing to thrive. But I do want to be intentional about making sure that we have a good mix of CEOs from trade associations, professional societies, and nonprofits. I want to make sure that we explore themes that are appropriate for small staff and large staff associations. And finally, I want to tease out more stories about the future.
Yes.
Lots of associations are thinking about the future, and many of them are doing strategic planning, and some of them are even engaging in foresight planning, as urged by the likes of people like Jeff DeCania from Foresight First. So I think if we have people on the podcast who are thinking about the future, then it'll be kind of an interesting conversation on top of talking about the things that they're already doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, this is the time of year where people are excited at the prospect of the future and what the next year really will hold. So, I think within 2025, we can really expect to see another rich and terrific year for Associations Thrive.
Leah and Ray, this was great fun.
This was so fun.
I'm going to have you on more often.
Anytime. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great way to close out the year.
Yes.
100%. Thanks for joining me today. Let's do it again. Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. My personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!